Love often takes unexpected twists and turns, but that just makes the story more interesting.
My eye caught her, and that was it.
Oh my goodness, I think I'm falling in love with this boy.
I told my husband, if you marry me, you're going to laugh for the rest of your life.
Join us as we continue to bring to life the Canadian love stories of romance, family, friends, and community.
Well, love is the most important thing.
Everybody looks out for each other in this village. That's just how the village works. Everybody kind of helps each other. And when somebody falls into a hardship or whatever, everybody gathers around and everybody helps to support.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Canadian Love Map. We've got a good one for you today.
Do we ever? We're traveling to small town Saskatchewan, Love. And I mean, it's called Love.
Yeah, we're going to the Village of Love. How did you find this?
Oh my goodness, a small town Saskatchewan article caught my eye. I'm talking months ago. Like, I was still an intern. I was looking for people to find. I reached out to Mayor Shelley and she was over the moon ecstatic. And we finally got her and she's joining us today.
I'm immediately going into all my little puns and cliches probably in the Village of Love. Like if you go there as a visitor and you trip on the sidewalk, like you're falling in love.
I fear you might be correct. And that seems to happen often because they just opened their chapel, which we will hear so much about that from her.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're really making it a destination village, and that is part of the story. So thank you for finding this, Madison.
Yes, I can't wait to hear the interview.
Okay, here we go. Hi, Shelley. Welcome to the Canadian Love Map.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
This seems like a pretty good love match between our podcast and you and your town. We are so excited to share the story of your, I want to say town, but it's not a town. It's just a village, right?
That's correct. Right now, it is just a village, though at one time there was 250 people living here and probably a dozen businesses.
How many people do you need to be a village?
I think it's over 200.
Yeah, that's a question that you probably had to do on your exam to become the mayor.
Yeah.
What is a hamlet and what is a village? And what is your current population?
Actually, right now, I believe we're at 78.
Oh my goodness. That must fluctuate when tourists come in because of your name.
Absolutely it does. It's a constant. Every day people are driving through the village. They stop at our heart signs and take photos. And so, it's a unique name and it just draws people in just because of its name.
Shelley, tell me about your village.
Okay, so actually the village became a village when a handful of residents got together, pooled their money, and they bought all this land and they started building a village. And everything in this village, structural, all the events, anything that took place was all done by volunteerism, donations. Very, very little of it actually came out of taxpayers' money. It was how this village grew so quickly.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. How did it get its name?
There are two stories. So the first, like when I first became mayor, I went through the minutes right from the day they started taking minutes right up to date. And the stories that were in there it came from a train conductor, the first one that came through the village after the tracks were built. And his name was Thomas Love. There is another story, however, that I just recently actually confirmed. And there was a gentleman in town who built a lumber yard and a woman had come to town to work for him. And everybody in the community could clearly see that the two were smitten with each other. And eventually those two did marry. So that is where they believe the love came from.
Okay, well, set the scene for us if you would. If we were to drive into your town, what would we see?
Okay, well, the town, since I became mayor in 2016, has been a work in progress. When I first came, it was just basically being maintained. So But now when you drive into the village, the first thing you're going to see is the wedding chapel that we just recently finished and some landscaping that's been done over there. The only business that we have in town is the Stagger Inn Bar and Grill, which is more like a restaurant during the day, and they have excellent food. We have people come in all the time from outside the community. We have a 15-site campground that we got set up, and we also have a community park that has a stage and a dance floor, and it's got a camp kitchen, and it's got playground equipment. That's where we host our annual Party in the Park event every year. Then you're going to come across the train tracks and you're going to see our village office. You're also going to see our little heart signs that we have on our streets, like Puckerup Alley and Sweetheart Drive and Lovers Lane. There's a few of them.
Those make for great addresses if people are sending them letters or packages.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been the mayor for 8 years now, and
Correct.
It sounds to me like things changed when you came in town. It's like that old expression, there's a new sheriff in town, but in this case it's a mayor. How did you set about to, help the town evolve?
Well, when I first came to town and kind of had a look at the finances, I realized really quickly that they've got a very low tax base and don't have a lot of revenue coming into the village, which is why the two nonprofit committees that I organize have been paying for all the infrastructure that's been built in the village in the last 8 years. But I quickly also realized that the Village of Love, just with its name itself, is very marketable. And I thought, I can bring people to this community, make it a picturesque wedding destination, and have all the facilities that they would need for a wedding. So that's what my goal was when I started. And it just seems to be going along nicely.
And does that suit the inhabitants of the village? Are they pretty on board with making it a destination town? Or village, sorry.
I believe so. When I had the idea to get the chapel built, I actually went around door to door and talked to all the residents in the village to see what they thought about the idea and to tell them why I was doing it. And it was to bring more revenue into the village so that we don't have to raise taxes. I have been a firm believer in the village of not raising taxes unless we have to. So unless there's some big major expense that we have to pay for, like we just had a big overhaul on our town tractor. So when stuff like that happens, then I may raise taxes for a year to get that paid, but then it goes back down to the regular taxes.
Okay, I love that you have a town tractor. That'd be the Love tractor. Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm also really intrigued by your example of democratic process, that you actually just have to go knock on, well, if there are 70 people in the town, there are fewer homes. So you don't have to knock on that many doors to really canvass all your constituents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm an open book, and I'm very approachable. Like most of the people in the village have my personal cell number.
Oh, that is great. Tell me about the chapel. So we're going to the chapel, and it's the Chapel of Love.
It is the Chapel of Love. That building actually, ironically, used to be an old train station bunkhouse.
Oh.
And the gentleman that had purchased it had intended at some time to do something with it, but never did. And when he heard that we were looking to build a chapel, he donated that building to us.
Well, that's an act of love in itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then we got volunteers together and we totally gutted the inside of that building. And the outside, we had new siding put on and new shingles put on. And yeah, it's beautiful. It turned out beautifully. I'm very happy with it.
And what kind of experience was it for the volunteers who came together to make this happen?
It was a really good experience, actually. People came out day after day to help, and everybody was always in a good mood. Nobody was grumpy. I mean, everybody worked very well together.
And then, so you had done all this work, and then it was ready for its grand opening. Did you have one of those, or did you just have a first wedding?
We had a first wedding, actually, is what we did. And it was from a person whose parents live in the village.
Oh, sweet.
She was our first wedding. And then after that, we started getting a lot more interest in it. So like as it stands right now, we have 2 bookings that have already booked for 2025. And we've had 3 weddings in there so far. So yeah, we're getting a lot of interest, and we're having people come from all over. Like this last couple that got married in there, they actually eloped, so it was just themselves, and I was their witness, and my other counselor took the pictures. But they came from 6.5 hours away to come get married here.
Wow. Okay, that is fantastic. And even as you're describing the chapel, and what the process is like, I can sense all these ears perking up across the country of people going, oh, we could get married in love? That's a great story to tell our grandkids.
Absolutely. And because we have all the other things that they'll need for a wedding, like a community hall with a full kitchen and the park, if they would rather get married over at the park, or we have campground for people to stay in. So yeah, it's at some point too, there is going to be a honeymoon cabin here.
Oh, that is, of course there is, of course. But first, let's talk about the chapel a little bit more. Now that it's finished, you did such a good job. I love the way you walked us through town, sort of. Walk us through the chapel. Just describe it if you would.
Well, the inside of the chapel, we put pine tongue and groove on the walls and the ceiling. So it looks very elegant in there. And then we went to Prince Albert, which is just a short drive from here, and purchased old church pews for inside the chapel. Those ones need a little bit of work. They've got character, let's just say. But there is a plan at some point to make those look even better than they are. And then we have flower bouquets on the end of every pew. We've got lots of windows in there, so it's very bright and airy for the summertime. We've got a deck built around it with a ramp going up. We want to put a stone pathway from the front of the chapel running down. On this property. There's 2 rows of trees. And in the summertime, when those trees are full, it's just like a beautiful little walkway. So what I want to do is put a stone pathway all the way through those trees, because at the end of those trees is the parking lot for the restaurant. So people could drive right up to the parking lot and then walk through what we're hoping to make a beautiful scenery of trees up to the chapel, where it would be a great place for photos.
I love that idea. Is there a sense of creative collaboration as this evolves? Are there people who are always coming to the table with ideas, or is it one person's vision?
No, actually, it is a group of people. It's both of my nonprofit committees have come together and given ideas and suggestions. So yeah, we have a group of about a dozen people that put ideas towards anything that we do.
We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centres. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centres are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. You know, my mother is from a very small town in Saskatchewan. I'm not positive if it even exists still, but it was called Medstead.
I've heard of it.
It was a very small town, and I really have this sense that when people live in a tiny group or cluster like you have with 70 people in your population, there is a very different sense of community and love. You know, that's really what is beneath the sense of community than living in cities in our world today.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Everybody looks out for each other in this village. So if somebody knows that somebody is out of town, somebody is going to be watching their property. We don't have any problem with theft in the village because everybody takes care of everybody. If there's a resident, say, that falls at home or whatever, somebody is going to be up and somebody's going to be over at her house and somebody's going to be helping her. So that's just how the village works. Everybody kind of helps each other. And when somebody falls into a hardship or whatever, everybody gathers around and everybody helps to support.
Yeah, there's just a different sense of connection and belonging, which are really fundamental human needs. And I think living in a village like yours must really be a very different experience than living in New York City or Toronto or LA. It's a whole other kind of life.
Absolutely.
Apples and oranges.
Absolutely. Totally different kind of life, I believe. Back here is like when I came here 8 years ago, I came from the Lloydminster area. And it was kind of a little bit of a culture shock, actually, because I could not believe how friendly everybody was and how welcoming they were. It was just, everybody's so laid back here. Nobody, it's not about who has the nicest vehicle or the biggest house. It's not like that back here. And a lot of bartering still goes on back here, for baking or gardening or mechanic work, whatever it is. It's kind of how everybody lives around here. It still continues.
Wow, it does. By your description, it does feel like a different world than what so many people are experiencing today. You think of the darkness and heaviness of our world these days, and that seems like a little oasis in the desert.
Oh, absolutely. And in a way, it's an oasis for me because I do follow the political arena and watch what's going on, and it's so frustrating. It's nice for me to be able to direct my attention to something other than what is going on.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, why did you move to Love?
Well, actually, my husband, his family is from north of Love, and when he was born, he first came home to a house here in Love. And they lived here, a house actually that after they moved out was turned into a church. And then eventually that was turned into a house. And then eventually my son bought and totally renovated. And now there's somebody else living in that house. But yeah, he was so cool. He was from the area, and we had been attending the annual Love Winter Festival since he and I got together, which would have been in 1988, I guess. We attended almost every winter festival, especially once we had kids and we got them involved in that. And yeah, I just grew to love the community. Everybody was so friendly and helpful, and it was fun to help with the festival. And yeah, and then the mayor, there was an election coming up, and the mayor had a strong feeling that somebody else was going to get in that was not good for the village. Mm-hmm. So they approached me and asked me if I would move here and run for mayor. So I did, and I won.
Amazing. Well, I'm also intrigued about whether people come just so they can get your stamps. Am I right that you have a special stamp at the post office there?
Yes, that is correct. We have an official cancellation stamp with a teddy bear on it. Teddy bear is kind of the theme for the village. And yes, lots of people, our postmaster, Connie, gets lots of mail from people all over the world. She says quite a bit from China, where they send letters, wedding invitations, anything to have our stamp put on it.
Do you charge extra for that?
No, she doesn't.
That's of course not. It's all about the love.
No, absolutely, yes. I get letters from schools all across Canada, wanting to know about love. So I write a letter, and we usually send the whole classroom some souvenirs. And yeah, we get a lot of interest in wanting to know about love.
It's sort of like writing to Santa, writing to love. Dear love, what do
Absolutely.
I need in order to find you?
Yeah, where are you? And
where are you?
Yeah,
love?
they want to know things like what the population is and what do we have in town and stuff like that.
Well, you mentioned the Winter Carnival, and I'm curious, is that all about love?
Oh yes, the Love Winter Festival, like I said, has been going for over 50 years, and we have people that come back year after year. So we've got grandparents, parents, kids, grandkids, great grandkids. Like it's a tradition, right, for people to come here for our winter festival, because it's kind of a unique little festival as well. We have some old-fashioned events, and this is for every age group. So we have stuff like nail driving, and this is like from 4-year-olds right up to 90-year-olds. We have nail driving, we have pillow fighting, we have leg wrestling, we have arm wrestling, we have Swede saw, we have smoosh smoosh races, which is 3 people that stand on what look like skis, but 3 people stand on it and they have to race and move at the same time.
Funny. Almost like the old 3-legged race. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, but they're all on basically one ski. And then we have the Norwegian kick sled, which is a little sled. Somebody sits in the sled, the other guy is behind the sled, and he pushes it all the way down. Then they switch positions and then push it all the way back.
Shelley, I don't know if you know the dates, but if you aren't able to tell me now, we'll have to include it in our show notes, because I think a lot of people like me are going to be thinking, I've got to go to this. This sounds just delightful.
Absolutely. And yes, I do know. Our event is always held the same every year. We try to make it on a Saturday that's as close to Valentine's Day as we can get. So this year it'll be February 15th.
Of course, it's next to Valentine's Day. That's perfect. And I'm also curious, in Nova Scotia, if you're from this province, you're called a Nova Scotian. And if you're from the Village of Love, are you called a lover?
I don't know. Maybe a Lovian? I don't know.
Lovian? I don't know. I kind of like lover. There are 70 lovers in the village.
Yeah.
Has a nice ring to it. Tell me what the future holds you obviously have a creative vision for this community. What does the future hold for love?
I have a big vision for the village. We're going to get, I think they are 8-foot letters that spell out the word love. And we have a little spot right when you very first come into town on the west side there's trees all along that road, but there's a little open spot there of grass where we plan on putting these big letters so that it'll be another photo opportunity for people who come through the village.
It's Instagrammable.
Oh, yes.
There must be so many Instagram, TikTok, Facebook posts featuring love. And can they tag you when they post their photos?
Absolutely. I was waiting for the hall completion before I really gave a big push to marketing this as a unique place to get married. So once that's all completed and I can get photos of everything to show people, then I can really start pushing it and marketing it. And I'm going to put together lists of like hairdressers and clergymen or justice of the peace or caterers, photographers, limo service, accommodations. Like I'm going to make up a pamphlet that's going to have all of this stuff on it. So if somebody is interested, they know already where they can contact all the services they're going to need.
Oh my goodness, you really are thinking of everything. You mentioned working on the hall. What do you need to do? I imagine the hall is a very important piece of the community this size. Like you have to have a space to gather.
Absolutely. Yeah, the hall is very, very important. And that's why when we found out about the structural issue in the hall, a lot of people wanted us to just tear it down and build a new one. Now, like I said, there is an original part to that. The original part of the hall is still there. And I didn't want to lose that history. So a lot of the stuff that needs to be done left now in the hall, myself and my husband and a few other people, we will get in there and get that done because festival is coming up quickly. And because the cost of renovating that hall is a lot more than we expected, because when you start renovating inside of a hall, you find things that you never expected to find that rise up the cost. So the roof and stuff is on. All that needs to be done now is we need to put a ceiling back up, and we're going to put the tongue and groove on all of the walls because those also were damaged during the roof replacement. So yeah, that's the next project.
So you really need to do the work to get it open again.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that it's up and ready long before Winter Festival.
I'm curious as to whether you have T-shirts, village T-shirts, that you can sell to people who come and visit, because that seems like a natural, or other, paraphernalia like that.
Well, that is another one of my goals, and that is to open up, say, a small coffee shop, souvenir shop, where people can come in and buy T-shirts, sweatshirts, whatever we can find to put our name on to sell. One of my counselors right now does have Village of Love T-shirts that she is selling, just so that we have something until we can get everything else that we want to get done organized.
Well, you can tell her I want to buy one.
Okay, I will definitely let her know.
And I will wear it proudly.
Well, thank you very much.
Shelley, is there anything we didn't talk about that we should?
The village is looking for donations to help us with this big renovation going on in our hall. And anybody that would be interested can contact the village office, and we would really appreciate it.
And do you find that the population is growing because people discover this lovely little village and just realize, I want that kind of standard of living?
Absolutely, it's growing. When I came here in 2016, there was only 55 people here, so it's definitely growing. And we're talking about opening up more. Like, we have a big lot that used to be the school grounds. That, I mean, if in a perfect world, and if I had my way, I would put a bunch of tiny homes on there for seniors and single moms.
Oh, beautiful. That would be an act of love.
Absolutely. Well, somebody has to help them. And, especially single moms with kids, they don't want to be in the city where all this crime and chaos is going on. So I just feel like it would give the mothers, especially single mothers, peace of mind to know that their children are going to be looked after and watched in this village, because that's what we do. Like, if the kids are out running, or if the kids are in any kind of danger, we make sure that the parents are aware of it, or that somebody is aware of it. We watch the kids. We make sure that nothing can harm them. So yeah, that peace of mind, I would think, for a single parent would be huge.
Well, that is really the embodiment of the expression, it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your love story with us. It's just a treat. I can't believe we didn't find you before this. Thank goodness Madison, our producer, found you. And I'm just delighted to have had this conversation. I really want to visit you someday.
Well, you definitely are welcome to come and visit. Thank you so much, you guys, for asking me to do this.
Thanks, Shelley. Lots of love.
Okay. Lots of love to you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap, or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.